what I created was a replica of my traditional outfit, which is a buffalo headdress, and this is called the buffalo dance. And the dance of this came by way of Kutpitaki Su, yellow old woman who went to war. And this guy had this particular headdress, and they would call him Kasiku Mina, weatherman. He was the weatherman. And what he did was he sat on the east end of the Sundance Arbor, where they have the opening where people came in and out of. And that entrance, right beside it, was where he shared a spot with Chief Cap, another well-recognized elder of that time period. And they would do the piercing of the young men when they did the Sundance. And for some of the people that understand, it's a flesh offering. You know, you hang from this tree of life and you pray, and then you run back till your flesh breaks, eh? You know, like I had a tough time to decide if I was going to do it. And I witnessed my father doing this. He was in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. And I saw my dad dancing with, this is kind of reserved for young men. But I went and I saw my dad dancing in his late 50s and dancing with authority, with his arms swinging and his whistle just... And these young men in their 20s barely lifting their legs up. But my dad was rejuvenated because he had a principle and a purpose for doing this ceremony. And as the storm was coming and they were just getting ready to break, I saw Elder lift up his arm with the eagle fan, and the storm split in half. And I saw 5 eagles in the opening above the sky. These men, including my father, broke from the tree. Now, I thought that was pretty special. I thought I was honored to be in the presence of that. And it took me another year before I decided that I was going to do it. So I did the piercing Sundance. So in that essence, I also recognize, you know, what I've been doing and need to acknowledge and keep the legacy on. And so this buffalo dance, the story of this dance is going to live on long after I'm gone. So there was this young lady. I need to sing a song before I can't just say the story. So there's this young lady that was bathing by the water, and she was cleaning herself. And she looked back to the teepees. There was a lot of sickness. There was a lot of sadness in the community. And there was a lot of hunger because they hadn't found a buffalo. So this young lady, as she was bathing, she started to pray to the Creator to help her and her people. And, you know, people were depressed and sad. And when you're in that situation, you can relate that most people would spend a lot of time in bed and, you know, not any purpose to get up out of bed. So the camp was not moving. As she was praying and opened her eyes, on the ridge, on the bluffs of the hill there, she could see the buffalo. There's buffalo walking. So she ran up the hill and she tried to startle a few of these buffalo over the cliff so that her relatives could have some nourishment and go on the larger hunt. So anyway, she went up and she took her robe off and she was trying to startle these buffalo over the cliff. And as she was doing this, the buffalo were not paying any attention to her. They were just grazing on the grass and not paying attention to her. So she sat on one of these rocks and she started to pray to the Creator again and talking about the difficulty of her relatives. And then she offered herself to the buffalo people if they would feed her relatives. And you could hear this roar of this big buffalo bull. And he started to charge a portion of the herd, and he startled them over the cliff. And as these buffalo were falling over the cliff, the buffalo bull came back to the rock she was sitting on and said, I come to collect on your pledge. I've come to take you as my partner. And the woman knew what her pledge was, so she says, yes, I'll go with you, but I have to tell my relatives I'm leaving. Well, the buffalo chief says, well, if we stay here, they're going to harvest me too. So the woman, true to her commitment, her pledge, she got on the back of the buffalo and they left. Well, the people in that encampment heard the buffalo and they ran out and they started to, in excitement, started to celebrate and harvest these animals. They had spent a full day harvesting these animals, and then the father of this young lady started to look around and didn't notice her daughter in the encampment. So he started to look around the outside of the camp and look for encroachment, because us indigenous people, we all also wear moccasins differently. So as we look into the trackings along the mud and along the river, we would notice and recognize encroachment by other people. Well, he didn't see any, so he gathered some warriors and they expanded the search for his daughter. After a couple of days, they were kind of exhausted and resting along the river, and the man was out there bathing himself. He's asking the Creator to help him find his daughter. And while he was still praying, there's this magpie that flew out of the trees and was saying, the little magpie was saying, feed me, and I'll tell you where your daughter is. Well, the man reached into his pouch and got some pemmican and was feeding that bird. After the bird finished eating, he whispered into the man's ear that his daughter was further up the river with the buffalo people. He says, go further along the banks of the river and I'll bring your daughter to you. The magpie flew off and landed on the daughter who was resting and whispered in her ear that her father was down by the river. So the young lady got the outside core of the buffalo horn and told her husband, the buffalo chief, that she was going to get water. Well, she went down to the river, and when she got there, her father embraced her. And she was so happy to see her father, and she began to tell her father about the pledge that she made. And the father said he's going to go get some gifts and come back and give them to the buffalo chief so she could return to her people. Well, as they were talking, the magpie flew over. The magpie was twerping. Here comes the buffalo chief. Here comes the buffalo chief. Well, the daughter knew the buffalo chief was a very jealous being, so pushed her father into the willows and was covering him up. And next thing, the buffalo chief came over the ridge with some of those buffalo soldiers, some more buffalo. As they came over the ridge, the buffalo grunted and he says, "Who are you talking to the young lady?" The young lady said she was singing. And the buffalo was snorted and could smell presents in the willows. So he grunted and hooked his horns, and these buffalo soldiers ran down and was trampling the father, ripping him apart. Well, the daughter was hysteric and started to hit the buffalo chief and says, "You killed my father, you killed my father." The buffalo chief was saddened by this. So he told the young lady, "I heard you people of the earth, you people of the earth have strong medicine. If you could bring your father back to life, I'll let both of you go back to your community." So the young lady asked the magpie to assist her to get a piece of her father's flesh, a piece of his backbone, and then she took her robe out and she rolled it up. She took a feather out of her hair and she had a rattle, and she sang 2 songs. She unrolled the robe. Her father's body was there, but it wasn't breathing. So it rolled it up and she sang 2 more songs. After the 4th song, they unrolled the robe and her father stood up. The buffalo chief was surprised. But he says, I knew that you had strong medicine, you people of the earth. He says 2 things. First thing, I give to the woman this rock. It's shaped like a buffalo. We call it the Iniska. So he told the woman to dance that rock over the incense, and he says, I will come and feed you. Feed your relatives. And he says to the man, for many times you harvest my relatives, the buffalo, but you never give thanks. He says, I want you to do this before and after the hunt. So the buffalo chief starts to sing a song. The song I sang before I told this story. Those buffalo soldiers started to sway and jump up on their back legs. Next thing, they started to take human form, and they started to do a buffalo dance. After the buffalo chief was finished singing, the buffalo went back to all fours, and he told that man, I want you to do this dance before and after the hunt. So that's how that buffalo dance, that buffalo story came to my family clan, and that's how I pass it on to the library.